Hey guys, General Tabby here, and today I am going to be continuing from a previous podcast, and I actually want some input from you guys. So if any of you guys are listening, because this is going through a few sources at the moment, if you're on my Twitter, join in. If you are just watching this on YouTube, join in. And obviously, if you are watching it, listening, sorry, I'm so used to doing just streaming and broadcasting with video, so still getting used to wording on that one. But if you are listening, join in the discussion. There is a live chat on this broadcast, so feel free to drop your opinions. So for you guys who might not have seen part 1 of this broadcast, I basically went into what I narrowed down to be what I believe are the 3 possibilities for what happened to Madeleine McCann. And I've been thinking about something since then, and I feel now is an appropriate time to discuss it, since they're in the papers again, the McCann family. I'm not fully sure what's going on. I only read briefly an article, and it's not exactly to do with, directly to do with Madeleine. It's to do with them, I believe, not turning up for a show or something like that. But the interesting part was when I read about how the detective was sued for the book he wrote, blaming them and saying that it was them. So I figured this does fit in to something I wanted to talk about after my last one. So I'm going to do that now. So my favourite before was narrowing it down to the 3 possibilities that it could have been the McCanns, meaning the parents, their friend who went to check on Madeleine and claimed he did not see her, but yet assumed everything was fine and dandy, when clearly it wasn't, or the third guy who was seen walking down the street with a girl in his arms, which, when I mentioned how it may have come across very strange for not only the time of day, but the season in general, and the fact that he was carrying her in such a manner. It looked like she was either asleep or knocked out, and I believe it wasn't exactly night time. It was like he was just carrying her down the street, apparently carrying her home, is what he later claimed, and claimed it was his daughter. But she was wearing similar things, which were described to have been what Madeleine was wearing, and it had the same colour hair. So it raised alarm bells. But the thing is, what I'm doing today is a bit different. Instead of thinking who could have done it, I figured we'd try a different method, and this method is to see who couldn't have done it out of them 3, or 4 if you count the parents separate, which would be difficult to do considering the timeline. So I'm not going to go too much into what I've already covered before. If you want to know more in depth about why I believe it's them 3, then please watch the previous video. So the fact is, if it was the McCanns, they would have had if they did it together, they would have had a couple of hours. There was a window where no one saw Madeleine, apart from the mum, and then when the father came home from tennis. So they had a few hours between them, where they could have, if they were responsible, they could have moved the body within these few hours before going out to meet friends. But this is where my new theory comes in, where I decide who couldn't have done it, or who is less likely to have. You see, they had the time frame where they would have been able to do it. I grant that. But after I thought more about it, I thought, to be fair, maybe I should look more about why they couldn't have done it, because these are very intelligent people we're looking at. We are looking at 2 people who I believe are surgeons. I believe they are intelligent people. They have a good career. They're intellectually smart people, and we could look at this in 2 ways. We could look at it as in, they're smart people, they might be good at covering things, but the other side is, smart people does not necessarily give you traits to be able to pull off what they would have needed to do, which is within a few hours, and that's the maximum they get. Within a few hours, they would have had to have calmed down enough to present themselves in front of friends and come across as if nothing was possible. Sorry, I'm still working up to it. As if nothing was wrong. And that, it's not possible for some people. It is possible for certain people being ones who have certain, who might be sociopaths or, lack some kind of emotions or emotionally stunted people. But two professional people who have a family and have come across to other people as quite good, upstanding family members. And before you start saying, well, why did they leave their children alone, then I grant you that point. They should not have done that. Because obviously the whole half an hour checking routine did not work. But apart from that, they came across that evening in particular, I don't really care about the rest of the time, but that evening in particular, they came across perfectly fine. They was in front of friends. I don't know if they was in front of exactly like family members. But they were people they were close to, so people that knew them a bit. And they came across fine. No alarm bells were ringing in the way they were acting. And also, the other thing that kind of gives it away, if they are the innocent ones here, if they were the guilty party even, they would not have let one of their family friends go and check that room. Because he came back and said everything was fine. It was only later on that he said, actually, I didn't see Madeleine. She was already gone. She was not in my sight. I didn't see her. I just assumed everything was fine. Which obviously was a mistake. So you wouldn't do that if you had done something in terms of committing murder on your own child. You would not then say, yeah, you go check on her. You could do that. Because two things would have happened. Either come back and said she's missing, or she'd have gone, I think I've done something and that's why she's missing. I won't say until someone else goes to check on her. Which obviously could have been what happened, but it doesn't seem likely. If you went to check on your friend's daughter and she was missing, you would come back and immediately say she's missing. You would literally come back straight away and show everyone that within that time frame you have done the right thing and come straight to them and told them. So it's not a rational or logical explanation to have done that. You would not authorise someone to go check on your child knowing she's not there, but being so calm about it. If it was all part of your plan and you thought, I need someone else to take the blame for this, I need someone else to kind of go under, you would still come across the rest of the evening like there was something wrong, because it is not normal behaviour for people to be able to kill their own child and then come across fine, unless you was already maybe that way inclined, or like I said, you were a sociopath or a psychopath. And these people, they rang no alarm bells, and I'm not saying it's impossible, it's happened before, but I'm saying what is the likelihood that these two professional people both met, both happen to be sociopaths, have a family together, and then randomly do such a thing to their daughter. So I think of it more the other way, as in I am trying to actually see it in terms of maybe they could not have done it. They just, the way they operated after that point, it just comes across wrong. I mean, if it was done as an accident and they panicked and they really didn't want people to know them, they probably just would have avoided going to dinner. They would have just turned around and gone, Madeleine's poorly, or one of the other twins is poorly and we're not coming to dinner tonight. You would not necessarily just go out your way to try and act normal in front of a crowd you might just break down in front of, and then authorising someone else to go check on them. It doesn't seem to all add up. And don't get me wrong, originally I thought the parents could have been responsible, but after looking at it from this point of view, I'm beginning to think that maybe they weren't, because they would have had this good gap where they could have easily driven away, but they would still have risked being seen in this complex, and no one did. No one saw them leave. In fact, the father was playing tennis for a good amount of his time. The mother would have had to have done it by herself. But then the father came home and he claimed Madeleine was still there. So they would have both had to have been in on it. So, let's just put that aside a minute and say that, look, okay, they didn't do it. That still only narrows it down to two other possibilities. I mean, obviously there's a fourth one, but it could be someone completely not in this equation who we don't know about. But we can't really do much work on that if we have no other sign of anyone else being involved. So we can only work on the other two. Now, the other person being the family friend who went to check on Madeleine. His behaviour's strange, and I don't like him. I do not like the story on him. But at the same time, not everything can point to him. Because he would have had a very short window to have done anything. Because he went to check and came back and then said everything was fine. It was later on when he did the whole... Because their time frames, they kept mixing them up when police reports were put together. The family friends around this table kept saying different things. So not everything can be taken as accuracy. So let's say, for example, okay, let's just picture this a minute. You're out with friends, you're out with family. And someone wanders off to do something. You relax because you know someone else is taking care of it. Someone you know and someone you trust. So time doesn't really become an issue at this point, because now you know once it's hit that half an hour mark, someone else is taking over your shift. You relax. So you're not going to focus on the time here. So it could have been a few minutes that passed. It could have been a bit longer than a few minutes. All you're worried about is make sure that someone checks on your children. And let's say that's happened. He comes back and he's like, yeah, everything's fine. Time's not really going to be an issue here. You know, you've checked your time once, he's gone, that's it. You wait for him to come back. But you're not going to sat there in a panic. You just assume, oh, well, if something has happened, he'll come and tell us. Then he comes back and says everything's fine. So their time frames, they're not really going to keep track. But still, saying this, if it had been gone for a few hours, they would have noticed. So he has had under an hour time frame, easily, under an hour. I'd say under half an hour, to be honest. So he's had, let's say under half an hour. That seems the more reasonable one here, because anything over that, people would have really picked up on that. So under half an hour he's got to go in, kill someone and hide the body. And I'm saying this, it must have hid the body because the police went on lockdown basically after his checkup, and then the mother checked. After that point, the place went on lockdown eventually, and you know there's security everywhere. So he would have had to, if he did kill Madeleine, or if he kidnapped Madeleine, he would have had to have hid her, or hid the body, somewhere where no one would have even thought to look. So he would be able to, you know, escape with her once this place was overrun with guards. So it doesn't really seem logical. It doesn't even seem possible in some ways, because the police did mess up in quite a few ways. When, you know, this did happen. But this mother, who was in a panic, she was looking for her daughter. I think if someone had been acting shifty instead of like helping out, she might have picked up on something. Maybe not. Maybe she wasn't looking at her friends as suspects. But you would imagine in a close proximity, because he would have only got so far in that time frame to hide the body. And the fact that the window was found open as well, I don't know if he would have bothered to have... I mean, he could use the window himself to climb out the window through the back so no one else saw him. He could have done this, but that still leaves him with limited place to, you know, of travel in that time frame. So as much as I don't like his story and the fact that he did not tell them that he didn't see Madeleine and that she wasn't there, or maybe he didn't know and thought to double check, but the fact is he did not see her. That's what he claims, and apparently that was fine, just because the door was shut or there was no noise. He said, I believe his statement actually said there wasn't any like noise to suggest there was anything wrong. So that's not the way you should do it. That's not how you check on children. But anyway, let's just pass him along now for a minute and just say that, okay, let's say he has not done it, because a large chunk of his story would not be logical, would not add up, and I don't think he'd have got away with it. So that leaves the third guy, the one walking down the road with this girl in his arms, who he was later questioned, claiming it was his daughter. And this is a bit I don't get. He claimed it was his daughter, but it was her pyjamas she was wearing. after that long, because it was a while before they found this guy and interrogated him, it was quite a while. So I'm pretty sure he could have come up with something by then. Maybe he was a local man and he hid in plain sight. He didn't move away. People knew who he was. He came forward and, let them ask their questions. He could have had a daughter, and then later on just said, "Oh, well, these are her pajamas." And who's to say, "Oh, well, she's wearing a similar pair to Madeleine." This does not exclude him, because so far he was at the scene of the crime at the prime time, at this point where he could have kidnapped her. Because the police even said that, as I discussed before, the kidnapper could have been in the room or the apartment whilst the father was checking on Madeleine. This is possible. And then obviously he's escaped through the back window, which is at the other end of the apartment to where the parents are sat. Out where they're sat, about 70 feet away, on the other end. So they want to see him. So this man, he's not only had a good window where no one would check on Madeleine for half an hour. Let's say the other two people are telling the truth, and that they did check, they didn't see her, but they legit thought she was safe. He would have had this perfect opportunity because the father has just left on checking after her, so he knows no one's going to be checking on her now for a while. So he leaves immediately, giving him this big window. The only thing which doesn't make sense here, and this is the bit I can't quite fathom. If you did kidnap someone, why would you then cross the street after avoiding detection by coming out the back of an apartment? Why would you then just cross the street? Which, as I've seen on like a diagram of this, the layout of this complex, you can see from the path where you would come out of the apartment and walk down to where the restaurant is, you can see the end of this road from there. The only reason he didn't is because he was talking to one of his tennis buddies, but another woman saw him. Why would you do that? Why would you kidnap someone but then walk in plain sight, carrying her in your arms? Maybe he was literally trying to just look as casual as possible, but Madeleine, if it was her in his arms, did not look casual. She looked unconscious. And this is one of the things that rung alarm bells. So there are a few things of this equation that don't quite add up. But I think the larger section at the moment, and as much as I don't like the family friend and what he did, there is quite a large part of his story that doesn't point towards him, and the McCanns themselves, there is a large part that does not add up. And people will say how they acted and how they did all this stuff and the way they were during press conferences and all this, but if you haven't had it done to you, you can't understand how they would be feeling. They get told how to feel and how to act and how to come across during these, public meetings. They do, because there is certain ways they're told to act to try and, interact with the kidnapper. So all this stuff, it's changed, and it's hard on them if they are dealing with someone's, which at the moment it is looking like they could be. So I'm kind of going to leave it there today. This was just a quick update. I'm actually going to do, I think what I'm going to have to do is actually write out the timeline and do some kind of diagrams and actually talk over them rather than the screen you currently see. So for now, guys, I'm going to leave it there, and let me know what you think. This is a real actual crime case, so the more people involved in it, the more chance we have of getting further with it, which I know after however many years, she would have been 13 now, so it's been a while. So there's still hope though, you never know. But anyway, guys, like always, I will see you guys in the next video, or the next broadcast in this case. So take care, and I'll see you then.